how are you doing? My name is Joseph Googie. I am one of the co-founders of Pre-PT Grind. And tonight, in the next few moments, I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my story. It's kind of weird because I've never really shared this story before. I've been doing live videos since early 2017, and this might be my very first time actually sharing it like this. Honestly, it's funny. So I was on a call with one of my students right before this, and I told him, I was like, man, honestly, I'm kind of nervous about sharing this story. It's not gonna really take away from what I have to share. But I told him, I was like, man, like I've just never really talked about these things. I'm very good at communicating. I'm very comfortable on live stream and everything. But I was like, I've just never really shared this bit. And so I'm just gonna really kind of show you a little bit about why I am the way I am, and just hopefully from some part of this story, as a pre-PT or wherever you are in your journey, you're just able to find yourself. You're able to find yourself and really receive some encouragement from my journey, receive some direction from my journey. Just feel as though you're not really alone in all this, because part of it is, a lot of it is a struggle, but a lot of it is also masked under a few other things that we just never uncover, and that's my story. And so we have Isaac live, we have David, we have Andrew Tyler, we have Mang, we have Kaylee. Honestly, thank you guys so much for joining me. Looking forward to sharing with you my story. And as you come on live, anyone who comes on live, or if you're watching on Team Replay, please comment and let me know that you're here, so that as we talk, we can just have a conversation. I'm used to doing a lot of high energy videos, but tonight I just want to have a conversation with you, talk to you a little bit about my experience, of course, but then allow you to then also kind of give me feedback based on where you're at, and if you feel as though you're in the same place, or you've had the same journey or the same experience before. Nick, how you doing? Good to see you. What's up, Isaac, man? Yo, that's my boy. What's up, Sylvia? How you doing? Good to see you. Kaylee. All right, perfect. All right, so here's where I want to begin. I want to begin with my personality can be very deceptive. My personality can be very deceptive because I come off as being very confident. I come off as being very certain. I come off as being very clear. And in a lot of my videos, that's really what people see. In my patient interactions, that's what my patients see. In everything I do, I've just done a very good job of showing that side of me. One thing I've done a very poor job of in my journey is showing my more transparent side, showing my more vulnerable side, showing a lot of the fears that really, Marissa, how you doing? Carl, good to see you. Showing a little bit of the side of me that just haunts me sometimes, because it's part of everything that I am, but it's also the part of me that I really try to hide or never really understand. And as I came to realizing this story that I'm sharing with you tonight, I never knew it was my story until about 2 weeks ago. I was sitting with a group of friends, a group of other business owners, and we were just kind of sharing our experiences, why we did what we did, why I was serving as a pre-PT. F. Scott, good to see you. Why we were doing what we were doing as clinicians, and we were just sharing. And this is the story that came out. So I'm an immigrant. We came to the United States in 2000, June of 2000. And it was probably one of the most amazing experiences ever. Coming in from Kenya, that's where I'm from, East Africa. Africa's a continent. And so, Michael, how are you doing? And coming in from Kenya at a very young age, there were a lot of things, a lot of mixed feelings. I was excited because it was a new world. I was excited because it was a new journey, a new experience. But there was another part that I didn't really see, my parents' experience. For me as a kid, it was just more so based on the fact that I was just gonna have new friends. I think, Aya, how you doing? Judy, good to see you. I think for me, really what it was that as a kid, I was able to be part of something completely new, and I was ready for it. I was hype, I was ready. But my parents were going through a very, very different experience. My mother had been working for the government in Kenya as a secretary. Her dream from a young age was to be a nurse. My father was an accountant. He was working for a certain private organization, and they were doing okay. They were doing pretty well in Kenya, actually. And so the idea was that we were going to come to the States and be in a much better situation. But that's not quite what happened. When we came in, I remember my mom actually wanted to realize her dream of becoming a nurse, so she decided to go back to school. But while doing so, they didn't have the same privileges of just knowing, how to get, like scholarships or anything like that. And so there was a lot of debt that was accrued. Like I said, I was a kid. I didn't really realize this. Ben, how you doing? Like, I didn't really realize this as a kid. I didn't know. But what happened was my parents started working different shifts at different jobs. Remember, they were working pretty solid jobs in Kenya, but they were working different shifts just to try to make ends meet, to put myself and my sister, my brother wasn't born yet, but to put us through school, but to also give themselves an opportunity to create a dream for themselves. And so they were going back to school at the same university that I got my doctorate from. And but just seeing them go through that was pretty tough. My mother worked at a grocery store. My father worked at the same grocery store, working some crazy hours. I reflecting back later realized that didn't even know that my father was working a night shift at a factory just to kind of make sure that ends were meeting. But they did it because they loved us. They did it because they wanted to take care of us. They did it because of the dream that we had fallen in love with as immigrants. But they were also terrified of letting myself down and my sister down. And also having it all, fall apart with all the dreams and anticipation that had built up. And so as I was going through that process, I also realized I was the firstborn. I'm the firstborn in my family. And I was going through my own thoughts. After the excitement of coming to the States wore off, I had to take on this responsibility as a big brother to really protect my sister. And because of the hours that my parents were working, I found myself taking care of my sister more and more, which took away from the amount of time that we were able to spend together. And that was fine. But the problem was, from a very young age, and really this is still part of me today. And I know it's hard to believe because I'm a very confident person. That's why I started with that is I needed to protect her. So I put on this very confident facade, but in reality, I was more terrified than her. I remember this one time they have like the campus safety on our campus. I remember this one time when the campus safety would come to our door just to knock. And for me, instead of going to the front door, I actually would grab my sister, run to our room, hide under the bed because we were just like, I was like, listen, not today. And I don't know, it was part of my fear. I just felt like something was always going to go wrong. But at the same time, I always felt this need to also do the most I could to make my parents proud, more specifically my mother. And that's been part of my, it's been interwoven inside of me from a very young age. I've just always wanted to make her proud in particular. And so part of that, me trying to do more than my internal fears would let me do, was just to make her proud. And I wanted to live up to her expectations. Live up to her expectations as a brother, live up to her expectations as the firstborn. And from early on, I just felt this heavy weight to just be the leader. Obviously my little brother came on later, but I just felt this urge to be the leader. To have someone that could follow after me. And part of that was professional too. I knew that I had to live up to their expectations professionally. I don't know if you consider yourself part of this group, but my family had a few jobs that were go-tos. A doctor, an engineer, a lawyer. I'm sure some of you might have heard that before. If you've heard that before from your family, you can let me know in the comments. But those were my options, and honestly, it was kind of stressful. It was stressful because part of that was status. Part of that was the fact that it would make my parents feel like they had a son they could be proud of. And remember, all I wanted was for my mom to be proud. All I wanted was for my parents to be proud of me. All I wanted was for them to see my journey and say, wow, we came to the States. we sacrifice so much, and our son is setting the way, or is paving the path for his siblings. Our son is representing us well. And everything in my culture is about family. Everything about my culture is about making sure that you are representing your name well. So my last name, I had to wear it well. It was carried in everything we did. We'd go to the grocery store. My mom would be like, "Yo, remember who you are." You know what I mean? Like, so it was part of us. It was part of us. But it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. It was overwhelming to think that as the firstborn, I had to like be this presentable, great professional, whether it was a doctor, whether it was a lawyer, whether it was an engineer, whatever it was. Like, it was too much at times, because you think about it and you're like, man, like, what if I don't? Like, what if I don't accomplish those things? Would I be letting them down? What if I pursue it? Like, what if I don't pursue it? What if I fall in love with something else? So I was like, from an early age, I was just like battling between the two. I was like, is this what I want, or is this what they want? Is this, and for a good number of years, I ignored it. By the time I got into high school, I had kind of fallen in love with just being a doctor. I was going through a few things, but I'd fallen in love with that. But to be honest, I think all of that was simply because those were the options that I had. Part of that was because those were the options that I had been given. Part of that was because that's what I thought would make my mother proud of me. That's what I thought would make me a great big brother. That's what I thought would make this trip that we had made to the United States. That's what I thought would make it a success. And now, as I was going through that, I remember just kind of going through this battle, and that's all I wanted. I just was like, yo, whatever I do, if I could make sure that she looks at it and she says, yo, like, my son has accomplished it. Like, my son has made it. My son is making us look great. Then I was gonna be okay with that. And so my junior year in high school, I was locked in on being a physician. Lawyer was kind of there as well. And I went to my alumni weekend at my school, and that's when I was first introduced to being a physical therapist. I know I've shared that bit before. And I only went to the room for the PT because the physician, ironically, was full. And so because the physician's, room was full, I went to where my friends were. And so I went to the PT, and all I could remember was thinking was, like, she gets paid to do that. She gets paid to do this with her patients, and like, that's her profession. And I had never seen anything like it. And for the first time, I think I was starting to see something that I could see myself doing. There was only one problem. It wasn't part of the options I was given. And it wasn't part of what my parents had laid out for me as the careers that they thought I should do, because I was the firstborn. And I remember just kind of looking into physical therapy. I remember juggling with whether I should be sports medicine or physical therapy, where I could deal with athletes and all of that, and just kind of going through that juggle. I don't know if you've gone through this process. Tonight, who I'm talking to tonight is not someone who's juggling with a few different careers because you just kind of like all of them. I'm talking with coming to a point in your life where you're just like struggling between what you think you might want and knowing that it might also potentially disappoint the people that are closest to you. And that's where I was. My senior year, I remember, like, when I was graduating during my senior year, I remember they read, like, at my graduation that I was going to be a doctor. I was not brave enough to have them announce that I was potentially thinking about being a physical therapist. That summer, I had a conversation with a physician. This is where, for me, it kind of turned around because I was stuck. I was stuck because I was also really scared. Like I told you, I'm naturally not a confident person. I just come off as being confident. And I remember having a conversation with a physician. I still remember his name, but I'm not going to call him out on here. But he went to my church, and after the service was done, him and I had a conversation, and he asked me a little bit about why I wanted to be a PT and why I was considering it. And I was still scared to even share with someone like that because he knew my parents. I was like, oh, crap. And so he told me, he's like, Joseph, like, what do you want with PT? I was like, I've fallen in love with the fact that I get, like, time. because one of the things that I missed as a kid a lot of times was time. It wasn't my parents' fault. It was the fact that they were doing so much to try to make sure that we were taken care of. And so as a kid, like, I didn't feel like we always had as much time. Like when like for me, it was like me and my sister. And then when my parents were able to, like, especially on the weekends, we had time together. But during the week, no, not as much. And for my kids, I wanted to take that further. I wanted to now create time for them. I wanted something where I could have more to give to my kids. I didn't want to work late nights. I didn't want to have to travel away from them. So I was like, well, I didn't get all of that as a kid because of my experience. So I want something that gives me time. The second thing is the status of just knowing that I made my parents proud is what might be holding me back. And he told me, he's like, honestly, as a physician, I don't think you should be a doctor. And that was weird for me because he loved his profession. He was like, I don't think you should be a doctor, Joseph. I think you need to be a PT. And he was actually the first person that told me that it's a doctorate too. So he's like, you know what? It's a doctorate level degree. That might be, worth noting. But I wouldn't be a doctor. The things that you want for you and your future family and like just don't align with that. So you might want to really look into being a physical therapist. And that might have been the first calm that I had in my experience. That might have been the first time I felt like, okay, all right, like this might actually be possible. And it was because he said it was a doctorate. Like I said, like, I mean, it's weird. Like, and I know it might sound like I'm kind of like, running all over with this story, but it's because this is really like, these are things that I kind of shut away because I just convinced myself. I was like, well, this is the route I'm supposed to go. I never really talked about it. I never really asked myself why I was doing what I was doing. But honestly, like, I remember sitting my mother down and being like, Mom, I want to be a physical therapist. And she tried to talk me out of it. And I told her, honestly, like, Mom, like, it's a doctorate. Like, you can still call me a doctor. I'm going to be a doctor. And I remember her saying, oh, my son is going to be a doctor. Okay. And that was what convinced her. And for a moment, I remember being like, yo, Mama's proud of me. My mom's proud of me. My mom's actually like going to like have like whatever I do from here on out, she's actually going to be able to look at it and say like he's done it. He's done it. And so I pursued it. I remember my freshman year, and the reason why my story is different from Casey's is because I remember my freshman year being locked in. I remember being so locked in because I was like, yo, if I'm going into this now, if I'm going into this hard, if I'm going to do what I have said I'm going to do, and I know that my mother is supporting it because she's the one person from a young age I've always wanted to make proud. If she's behind it, I'm going to work my tail off. I'm going to work my behind off. And it came at the expenses of not having a bunch of friends in college and all that stuff. I had three main ones. I share about them in a podcast that we did with Pre-PT Grind. I think it's like the 20th episode if you guys will listen to that. And I talked to them. We have like a panel. It's all of us just talking with each other. But all through PT school, I was just focused. Honestly, like my pastime, like as a pre-PT, was playing 2K occasionally. One of my boys, DJ Haskins, like that's what we did, and that was my one way of having some kind of a release. That or either shooting hoops, but outside of that, I was locked in. I was focused. I was like, if this is what I'm going for, if this is what it really means, if I'm not letting this go, because I couldn't bear like letting something that I felt could have been my calling. I wasn't sure. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing that like fall away. Like I couldn't let myself not get accepted into PT school. I couldn't let myself give up on that career because I had already given up on the three main things that my parents had ever wanted me to be. And so because I thought that this was my way of potentially not letting them down, I locked in hard. Like I ended up getting into PT school early. And I remember even like that's where even what is now Pre-PT Grind, like that's where it started, was because I was doing a whole bunch of different things. I was talking to a lot of students that were ahead of me and asking them a lot of questions and all. And I was seeing all my classmates struggling. And I was like, well, okay, like, let me show you what I'm doing. Like, what if I just show you what I'm doing? And so we just created a program on my campus where we're just connecting students that were a little older with students that were younger, like early on that were struggling. And I was like, let's just show you how we're doing, how we're pushing it across. And that's really what has ultimately over time turned into, pre-PT grind and what we're doing right now. But all of that was simply to make her proud. All of that was simply to live up to an expectation that was preset from the very beginning of, me being young, me being, the firstborn, me feeling like I had these expectations and all that. But as I was going, even after I got into PT school, it was getting harder and harder. As I was getting into PT school, like the weight was like I could start feeling as though like this expectation that I was starting to live up to was starting to catch up with me. And my second year, and I know I've told this part before, but my second year of PT school is when it fell apart for me. My second year of PT school, and I shared this a little bit about this last week, was when it fell apart. But for most of you, it actually happens earlier. For most pre-PTs, it happens earlier. But I fell apart to the point where I didn't even know why I was in PT school anymore. I had no idea. I was like, why am I really here? I sat my fiance, well, she was my girlfriend at the time. I sat my girlfriend down and I said, like, I don't think I'm supposed to be in PT school right now. I don't think I'm supposed to be in this program. I stole somebody else's seat. I don't even think I consulted God on this because I was so busy trying to push towards an expectation. A pre-established expectations. It's good to see you on here, Nick. Like I was trying to live up to an expectation. And so I found myself lost. I found myself frustrated. I found myself confused. My grades suffered because of it. Like that was like, if I pulled up all my grades from my second year of PT school, you would easily see that I was close to the bottom. I was actually so embarrassed that we're given aliases, in PT school and you can create it. I changed mine 3 times that year because I started realizing my classmates are going to start figuring out that I'm not doing as well as they are. So I might be selling myself short and they're not gonna, that's not cool. So my ego was starting to step in the way. So I would just change my alias. So whenever my grades were showing that I got like my B minuses, C pluses and all that stuff, that they wouldn't know. I'm in PT school at this time and I still have no idea why I'm doing PT. I told myself that it was because of time. But really like I had gotten into something because like I thought it was my way to get what I'd always wanted, to just ensure that the person that I wanted to make proud my whole life was able to do it. And I know a lot of other pre-PTs are feeling that same way. We put out a survey recently and I heard a lot of students, I saw a lot of students in there were saying like the biggest pressure is the fact that I have certain people I'm trying to live up to. I have certain expectations I'm trying to live up to. I have certain family members, people that are close to me that are depending on me succeeding. I have certain individuals in my family or close to me that maybe might not see it eye to eye with what I'm doing. And if I fail, I'd be letting them down. If I fail, I'd be letting them down. And so I was stuck. Like I was like, okay, so I still have to finish PT school, but I had no, like what am I supposed to do with, like, if you've ever been lost in trying to figure out where you're supposed to be and what your purpose is, like that point of just being completely like in a blank is absolutely terrifying. It's terrifying. At this time, I'm mentoring students on how to get into PT school. Isn't that crazy? Like I'm convincing other people at this time that physical therapy is the greatest profession in the world. I'm convincing them that if they push hard, that they can get it. We're showing them strategies. I have Casey on the team at that time. But honestly, I was so confused that I remember listening to one of my boys one time that was like, yo, Joseph, listen, after I'm done with this thing, after we're done with PT school, like he was going through some of the same frustrations. He was like, honestly, like I might just go to med school. Keep in mind, that's where I was supposed to go in the first place. Keep in mind, that was all it is. Like all it was just like trying to figure out like how can I have this lifestyle that I want, because I know that I want something that is mine. I know that I want something that will potentially take care of a family that I don't have yet. And I know that there's certain things that I want for me, but I'm also stuck trying to make somebody proud, my mother. and it left me in a very I don't know how to better say it, but that year, coming out of that year, really took a lot of, well, my girlfriend, it took those three friends that had pushed me through, being a pre-PT, but honestly, I don't remember much of that year other than that. Like, I can't tell you what classes I took that year or whatnot. But I do remember my last year in PT school. That's when Casey introduced me to the platform that has then introduced me to online, which is Smart Success PT. But that's what really introduced us to just being able to serve pre-PTs online. And as I was on there, I was surrounded by other people that were going through similar things. Other people that were stuck between doing things the way that was expected of them, and doing things very differently. And I feel like a lot of us as pre-PTs are there right now. We are. We're stuck between trying to impress, certain individuals that are close to us, living up to expectations that aren't really ours. So I just want to ask you, do you know why you're doing PT? Do you know why you've bought into this profession? Do you know why this is the path that you've chosen? Are you doing it for somebody else? Are you doing it for somebody else because they'd be proud of you? Are you doing it for somebody else because their expectations of you are really high? Are you doing it for somebody else because they doubted you and you're just trying to prove them? Who are you doing this for? Because if you can't figure that out now, I didn't figure that out as a pre-PT, and I still got into PT school. But it almost got me to the point where I was ready to pull out of being a physical therapy student. It almost got me to the point where I was willing to pull the plug on something that I was starting to fall in love with. And that would have led to none of this. That would have led to me not being a clinician. That would have just led to a route of just, kind of going up and down in just cycles. But one thing I knew was this. One thing I knew was that as an immigrant, as somebody that came from a country where now after going back, I realized that the opportunities we have here are just so great. As someone who my parents had just poured a lot into, not love my parents, who had poured a lot into me and just wanted the best out of me. I also had to learn how to do it for me. I had to learn how to love PT for me. I had to learn how to love what I did for me, serve for me. And there are certain things now, this past year has been one of my biggest years of growth. And this is even after starting pre-PT grind, because I've just grown more clear with why I do what I do. I've grown more clear with why I serve the way I serve. And honestly, this would be the first thing I've done. Yeah. Honestly, Sarah, I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of you for doing that because it just, this has really been an unspoken fear right now in a mix of both myself and for living up to expectations of a first gen. Yeah, Sylvia. And honestly, that's what a lot of us are struggling with. We don't always share it. I've never really shared it. Honestly, you can look at all my videos. I've never really shared this, but I have these insecurities. I do. Even now, I know that a lot of what I'm doing online is different from what, my parents see as valuable. They don't get the fact that, we're trying to change the world, by serving pre-PTs all over the country, by inspiring you to be at the top of your game, by inspiring you to just never give up, by inspiring you to never let loose of this dream that's for you. But I'm also making it my mission to ensure that every pre-PT that comes across my voice from here on out, that is just stuck in that rut, that is stuck in that balance between trying to do something for someone they love and trying to do something for them, is able to just figure out how they can do it for them, is able to just figure out how they can do it for themselves, how they can do it for their family. Because honestly, at the end of the day, one thing I have to think about is when I'm 30 years in, 40 years in, what am I going to look back at? Am I going to grow resentful of the people that I loved because I did things the way they wanted them to do it, but it wasn't really for for how I needed it to be? Am I going to grow resentful towards my parents because of that? And I love them with all my heart? Am I going to grow resentful towards people that may have done it their own way and have achieved, like the various things that I could have potentially achieved had I just pushed myself? If I would have just had stopped and quit when things got tough, during my second year, how unfair would that have been to other people that have worked their behinds off to get in, only for me to just toss it away? But honestly, I want to, especially for you who is listening right now, who is going through this journey right now of just trying to fight disappointment, trying to not disappoint somebody, trying to not disappoint our families, trying to not disappoint the people that have invested everything in us. It's okay. It's okay to do it your way. It's okay to do it for you. Honestly, you might actually disappoint them a little bit. I did. I didn't choose to be a doctor. You might disappoint them a little bit. But if you do it for you and you never ease off the gas pedal, and this is why whenever pre-PTs are struggling with just knowing whether after certain downfalls, whether it's the GRE, whether it's the applicant, whatever it is, if you're doing it for you, then you're never going to ease off the gas pedal. I almost eased off it because I thought I was still doing it for somebody else. Even when I was trying to convince myself that it was for me, I thought I was still doing it for somebody else. So I started easing off the gas pedal. And that led to my second year where I almost let it all go. It's funny. I actually told Casey this, and this would be interesting for you to hear. In reflecting on my story, I remember not thinking that I had a story. I remember not thinking, even earlier this year, I remember thinking, man, everything's just been smooth sailing. I think I suppressed a lot of things, but I remember even telling Casey, I was like, bro, I'm contemplating just giving you, pre-PT grind altogether, just giving you the whole platform, because I knew he had a story, I knew he had an experience. But I think one thing that's unsaid and unspoken is the intent behind what we do, what pushes what we do. The anxieties that we face when we feel as though we're going to not only let ourselves down, but let a whole group of other people down. Or maybe it's just one person. For me, it's my mother. To this day, I still do things knowing that I want to take care of my mama. I know that everything that I want to build, the empire that I want to build, the businesses that, I'm a multi-business owner now. I have a clinic that I'm about to open up, clinic ownership and all. I'm still working hard to impress her, but not by what I'm doing. Now I'm doing it for me. Now I'm doing it for y'all. Now I'm doing it for those people that I serve, but doing it in a way where all the things they worked hard for, all the things that they fought for, all the things that they, the grocery store, all the sacrifices that they made, that they will all come to fruition. But I have to do it differently. I can't do it the same way they did it. I can't go about it the same way they did it. And that's sometimes scary to think about. That I'm going down a different route that's so unique from what they did, but I also know that it's the very route that's going to help me take care of them. It's the very route that's going to help me take care of my future family. It's the very route that's going to help me take care of thousands of other pre-PT students who are doubting themselves, holding themselves back from potentially doing what is one of the most amazing things for themselves, which is choosing a profession that is for them. A profession that is for them, where they have the ability to facilitate their energy, their passion, their love for service towards their patients and other maybe future pre-PTs. Other people that want to be in your same position right now. Other people that are going to want to hear where you are currently. Other people that want to understand what you were going through when you were watching Joseph on some random live stream, when he was sharing his story, what you were going through, what your struggles were, what your fears were, when you almost pulled the plug. When it got so overwhelming that you almost pulled the plug. You almost said, you know what, bump physical therapy. Maybe it's because I know that my family won't be proud of me. So you know what, let me find something else. Because this isn't it. Or actually, you know what, this is the last thing that I know they'd be proud. If I settle, maybe they won't be proud of me. And even if you went into PT knowing that it was for you, knowing that you're also doing it for your family, knowing that you're also doing it for somebody else, it's still never going to allow you to be who you were meant to be. It's still never going to allow you to unleash every part of what you want to do, everything that you want to give, and do things your own way. So you're going to have to figure it out for you. You're going to have to figure out if this is the direction you want to go for you. Stop holding yourself back from all the other individuals in your family or all the people that are close to you or all the, professors and friends that you are trying to live up to. Their expectations are not yours. They're going to be proud of you anyway. Don't worry. It might take longer, but they'll be proud of you anyway. I actually remember the first time that my mom was proud of me, going down the PT route. She had started to be exposed to more physical therapists. And she was like, yo, honestly, you guys are pretty dope. You guys are actually pretty cool. And for me, that was kind of like, man, like, where was that when I was trying to apply, when I was trying to be a pre-PT? Where was that my senior year, right? But it's because she just didn't understand it. But she was also trying to protect me. But one thing I have had to learn, one thing I've had to grasp in every part of my life is that when I do things for me, because I believe it's what's best for me, then I'm able to take care of every single person close to me. When I'm able to push boundaries, not because I've seen my family do it, not because that's okay. When I'm willing to push the boundaries, knowing that I'm doing something the energy at which I serve and how I even go about my profession, how I go about what I do, my lifestyle, how I'm able to take care of my fiance and my future. Like, I'm getting married in a few months. You know what I mean? So I have to make sure that I'm doing things that will not potentially destroy everyone close to me down the line simply because I did it for somebody else. So whose expectations are you trying to live up to? If it's yours, good. If it's anybody else's, learn from my story. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to either myself or us at contactpreptgrind.com. But that's the mission. The mission is to help as many pre-PT students who are stuck in the ruts of trying to figure out whether the lifestyle of physical therapy and the status that comes with physical therapy is really just clashing with their desire to also live up to somebody else's dreams, live up to somebody else that they see as someone they look up to, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, whether it's a mentor, whoever it is. You have to do it for you. You have to. You have to. You have to. You have a good evening. We'll talk soon. Bye.